Marsha Stonehill with Melt the Ice. Today on Operation F.L.O.W, I have with me Chris Brown. Chris Brown is from King George, Virginia. Currently, he resides in a neighboring county and works at the naval base located in King George County. Chris, thank you so much for being with us today on Operation F.L.O.W, and I'm really looking forward to our listeners being able to hear the things that you have to share.
Thank you so much, Marsha. I appreciate it. It's a great opportunity to be here. So growing up, I'm a King George native. My mom's from Fredericksburg. My dad's from King George. So when they got married, way back in the day, they decided to make their home in King George County, and that's where I was born and raised, in the Pass-Patanzi area of the county. So it was nice because I was able to acquire friends in the region, being Fredericksburg and King George and the surrounding counties, and I got to meet a lot of interesting people along the way. I always say, thankfully, because of my mom and dad's background and my dad worked in the bank, a local bank, I was always in a mixed and very diverse crowd. I just people were people, no matter what shade or color or gender, they were just people to me, and I always enjoyed being around people and just conversing. So growing up in the county, King George is a pretty small county, so you know everybody. You get your friends in kindergarten, and you guys migrate from kindergarten through middle school on through high school, and you really are one family. So I would say that growing up, it was always good. Never had any problems. And as far as when differences are sometimes introduced, it really didn't come to me until I say I was early teens. So growing up, I had friends. I had black friends and white friends, and in my immediate location, the majority of my friends were white. We played together. We eventually started going to church together at a local church in Pass-Patanzi, where I'm from. And really never had any problems. Their parents were very accepting, very accommodating, always treated me like one of the family. So I never felt like an outsider because of my race. They really did treat me like one of their own, and I really appreciate them for that. And I really now can appreciate them even more, having gone through life a little bit more since I was a kid.
Right. Just so our listeners have a timeline, what decade were you born in, and what decades are we talking about here?
Oh, yeah, very important point. So I was born in 1970, so we're talking 70s. In the 80s, things changed a little bit. You're a little bit older. 1980, you're 10 years old. Life is good. It's still every day is Saturday. No responsibility. Mom and dad are taking care of you, so it's just fun all the time.
Right.
You're growing up a little bit. Some things are changing. You're going from elementary school to middle school, so it's another twist on life. So primarily what I'm talking about here will be from probably the 80s to 90s.
Okay.
It'll be in those two decades. Because 80s and 90s for me were almost the influential years. Not that they weighed the most, but they had more of a wave from almost a simplistic child's life to a reality check.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a definite reality check to let you know. Yeah, okay. Some people may deem me a little bit different from others. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say 80s and 90s were a wake-up call for me.
So what do you mean by that, Chris? And maybe before we go there too, if we can let our listeners know that your father he went to the Ralph Bunche High School here in King George County, right? And that's where he graduated from.
Correct. Yeah.
So just to link those pieces of the puzzle too. Right.
So Dad also is a King George native, like I said earlier. He did graduate from Ralph Bunche School when the schools in the county were still segregated. As a matter of fact, when I started school, I went to kindergarten there.
Okay.
So Ralph Bunche, when I was there, was integrated.
Yes.
White kids, black kids. But we all, for some odd reason, we went to kindergarten there, and then when you graduated out of kindergarten, going to first grade, then you went to the King George Elementary School program.
Okay.
And back then, and I think it's still like that now, depending on where the lines were drawn to King George, you either went to King George Elementary School or you went to Potomac Elementary School.
Right.
Right. So the kids really didn't, from those two schools or regions, they didn't mix until you got to the middle school. They had one middle school in the county, so that was the melting pot.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so that was from, like I said, he's from the county. So like I said, born and raised here, so I've got family here as well in Fredericksburg and and other locations as well.
So then, but what you were saying and where you were walking into is just that everything was great. Every day was Saturday, and then it was the 80s and 90s, and something changed.
I'll say puberty happened, and people, not only for yourself, the external people, people from the outside looking in. Like I mentioned, I growing up had a very diverse set of friends. We weren't all black. We were white, black, whatever. Boys, girls, and we enjoyed each other's company. Never a problem. My mom and dad raised me to not see color.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very thankful for that. By my dad being a banker, excuse me, we were afforded opportunities that I guess maybe some of the black community here in the county weren't accustomed to. So growing up, we got to go to the country club. I could learn how to ski at a young age.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really introduced to a lot of things that maybe some of my peers weren't introduced to. So I'm growing up thinking that everything's happy. We're all this big family. Almost with blinders on.
Mm-hmm.
And really, that's part of being the innocence of a child. That's what I was experiencing, and life was great.
Right.
Life was great. So as I grow up, and like I said, we get into the 80s and 90s, things changed somewhat. The blinders came off, and I guess I had a little bit of a reality check. I think my first incident with racism was when I was going to church with my friends. We would all hang out. When I say hang out, my guy friends, we would get together, play ball. We play on the same softball team together. For the church, actually.
Right.
We ride bikes and we just had fun. But as we got a little bit older, of course we're starting to drive, and so we were all going to go out one evening, and my friend was dating this girl that lived in the same area we did, and we get to her home and she's really upset she can't go all of a sudden. So we're like, that's strange. So she goes back inside. Probably the next day or so, I find out that because I was there in the car, because I'm black, she's white, all of a sudden we're of the dating age now, we're teenagers. All of a sudden, Chris Brown can't go out and be in the same car with that young girl.
Mm-hmm.
And she was dating my friend. She wasn't dating me, but I'm black, she's white. All of a sudden, there's this barrier. So that really hit home. That hurt a lot. My friend's mother, she had me come over. She explained to me that it was wrong for her parents to feel that way. Matter of fact, I went to church with these people for about a year.
Wow.
Yeah, in the same area with them, and never really thought about the racism thing. I thought we were all like family.
Right.
So it sucked. So my friend's mother, she talked to me. She even had a conversation with my mom and dad. And I never forget it. Spotsylvania Mall was up and coming, something new.
Mm-hmm.
They had the little eateries in there, and it was a good teenage hangout. So they were actually planning to have an outing one Saturday, and my friend was going to take his girlfriend, but I was like, well, I guess you guys are going to have fun. His mom was like, absolutely not. We're going to take you. You're going to go. I don't care what her parents say. This is wrong. So they picked me up. Well, I'm sorry, they picked her up. Then they picked me up and we went to Fredericksburg. And his parents were huge advocates for me. And the beauty of it was that they were obviously born in another generation where they're from the Fredericksburg region, and she was from Fredericksburg, and her husband was from West Virginia. So I'm sure that they 100% understood the black and white division of the past, well, hopefully of the past, had been through the segregation and realized, they're going to be open-minded and realize there's something wrong with that segregation. You need to look for people for what they are, not for their skin color.
Correct.
You should not segregate or whatever just because you look different from someone else. So, with that being said, I felt slighted. I was a little bit upset. I was young too, so it was rough, but it really hadn't hit home. But it was made me look at myself like, okay, these guys are like my brothers, but there's obviously a division here that I wasn't accustomed to. So and from that point on, it almost became more apparent, and more incidents happened. And looking back, it seemed like they happened all the time, but they probably happened maybe 6 to 8 months apart. But different friends, same crowd of friends that I was living with, were in my location in the county. We had friends outside the county. There again, associated with the church. We had a good time, and one day I remember we're all going to go to the movies, and that girl came out of the house and she was crying. And it was almost like a nightmare. I was like, this is the same scene, different location that I saw previously. And in my mind, it's like, hopefully she's sick and this is not another Chris Brown being black episode.
Right.
And she comes out and she can't go because Chris Brown's black and I'm with the crowd.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, here we are again. So, and the whole time I'm going through this, thank God, I feel like God shielded me because I never took it. I took it personally, but I didn't take it to where I was like down in myself, because I am who I am. I love who I am. Wouldn't change myself or my situation for anything. I'm comfortable in my skin.
Yes.
Thank God for that, and and having parents and that support you, and friends that support you and their families, it does help. When you have support group, it's beneficial.
Yes.
So it eases the blow, because you're not looking at this by yourself saying why. You also have these other people in your support group saying this is wrong.
Yes.
So it's somewhat comforting. Is it fair? Does it make it right? No.
Of course not.
No. But it did help a lot. It was just amazing to me, the reality check. It's almost like, this can't be real. But
right.
It's very real. Because I wasn't raised like that. And, the weird twist about it is that you don't always see racism from people of other colors than you. Sometimes you see it within your own community. And we can segue into that later, but I really want to hit on this area right now. So as time went on, my friends and I, we never understood it, and we tried to get beyond it, And I had another episode where my friend and I were together, and his girlfriend had a foreign exchange student visiting for the summer or whatever. So we were going to go pick up him and his girlfriend and this young lady from this other country, and we were going to go out to Fredericksburg. We get down to their home, and his girlfriend comes out crying. And I was like, not possible. Not going to happen again. Lo and behold, her father comes out and says, hey, so-and-so, talk to my friend. He said, I hope you understand. I don't want you guys going out with my daughter and this other young girl, and I hope you understand. So we left there, and by this time we're old enough to drive, so it really hit hard.
Of course.
I was really upset. I was like, I'm good, man. You guys go out and have a good time. Just take me home, and I'll do whatever. My friend's like, nah, forget that. He's like, we're gonna hang out, and that is what it is. So, if I could advance over in the future, what's really ironic is that girl's father I saw him several years ago now at a gas station in King George, and he didn't recognize me, but I gave him courtesy. I was like, "How you doing, sir? Good to see you." And don't you know, he had the audacity, and I hope it was from a wiser mind that had been pricked along the way to realize there's something good in the world. He said, "Hey, good to see you." He said, he started talking to me about church. I was like, "You're going to church and you're in the God bed. Are you listening?" That's what I'm thinking to myself.
Of course.
I was like, it wasn't too long ago, sir, that, you wouldn't even let your daughter and her friend in the car just because I was sitting in there, and now you're trying to afford me the good news that God has.
Right.
And I was like, okay. We're gonna hope and pray that you really did get it right before you go to the other side. But it's just funny how the people after a while, do they evolve, or do they stay the same and just try to polish what they what they have?
Right.
It's really hard to gauge because firsthand that where that guy's coming from, what he's about. Now all of a sudden, a few years later, he's a little bit older. He wants to talk to you about God. So, in my heart of hearts, I have to hope that he really did realize his wrongdoings and he's trying to get it right.
I guess I would hope that the individual would have some sort of conviction on them, though, and say to you, I realize what I did before, and I'm really sorry. I see things differently now. I would hope that there would be that level of courage and accountability if there really was change.
Yeah.
It's a really weird thing, Chris, how people that are professing unconditional love and professing Christ and going to Christian churches and things. I know in some literature that I've read and in the psychology world, we would call it a cognitive dissonance. It's like, how are you not connecting the dots that you're this cruelty and this hatred and this hateful way of being, while you're also professing love out of the other side of your mouth? It just makes no sense at all.
It's amazing. I always believe that God will reveal certain things to you. It's just amazing for him. For me, that was like, oh, wow, whatever. But I'm going to smile at you and let you think that you did your good deed for the day, and we're going to go our separate ways.
Right. I think that's one thing I've heard other people talk about too, is just that racism isn't always blatant. It's something that you experienced personally, and then you see that person later and they're trying to be all buddy, and so the people around are like, well, what do you mean? He's a nice guy, or she's a nice person, and you're like, you have no idea. And then the tendency, I think, that I've witnessed is that white people will be kind of dismissive of how hurtful and painful and how disruptive that can be in a workspace or in a school space or just wherever it might be. But I don't want to take you off track of where you were going
that's
either.
Good conversation, because it just, when just that interjection there, it just reminds me all the more that racism is almost agnostic. It's I've seen it in my own race, and that's amazing.
Well, you've mentioned that earlier too. So what do you mean by that?
So what I mean by that, I alluded to earlier by being afforded other opportunities maybe some of my peers had not had the opportunity to do, like going to the country club, skiing, doing different things that maybe some of my, like say, peers just didn't have that for whatever reason, didn't get the opportunity. It's almost like not being accepted in your own camp. So I know, like in middle school, I've had like people say, of my race, you talk white. Like, okay, what is talking white? Because I don't, talk slang, I talk white. It's not white. It's talking like you have some type of education. So when someone black says, you talk like a white guy, you're not talking like a white guy. Think about what you're saying.
Right.
You know.
Right.
You know. So you have that. You know, people look at you a certain way, like maybe you don't wear your clothes or your pants down below your waist, showing your underwear.
Right.
You don't fit into a certain, you know, I'll say black circle, right?
Right.
You know, and you know, so that set me up. Encounters like that set me up in school to where I would have girls say, well, you don't date black girls. Well, it's not black girls I don't date. It's that I don't like loud, obnoxious people, whether you're a guy or a girl. I sort of get away from those circles. If you're bringing a lot of negative attention to yourself, I'm not going to be part of it.
Right.
I'm going to get the heck away from that because that's not who I am to the core. I'll say that in school, I had one serious girlfriend. She was black, and we dated in high school. I want to say maybe freshman to end of sophomore years, and to me, she was a diamond in the rough. Pretty girl. She didn't talk crazy, I'll say.
Right.
She wasn't loud and just obnoxious. She's smart, very pretty. She had goals, and that's what I was attracted to. You know, whether a majority of the women or girls that back then that I was attracted to were white, it is what it is. It was more than the outside I was looking at of someone I wanted to date. It was more the inner person as well. So a lot of times you weren't really accepted in your own, you know, ethnic circles.
Sure.
I don't know if that makes sense or not, but you know, it's that's why I always say that racism isn't always about people that are different colors than you. You can have people in the black community as well, not like you for where you came from, opportunities that you may have that they don't, or maybe the way you carry yourself. Even in middle school and high school, I like to dress a certain way. I like to dress nice. I wasn't, you know, I wasn't a hood rat. Didn't want to even try to imitate or be, you know, anything that related to a hood rat. And that's what I call people. And that's not just black. Hood rats can be white as well.
Of course.
So when I say things like I make comments, I'm not talking about one group. I just wanted to be in a different group, and I had a different mindset. And never thinking I'm better than anybody else, because I know we're all God's children. I've always had that mindset. I never look down the barrel at anybody, but just certain groups, certain people, I just don't want to be around.
Right.
It's a personal preference. As much as I think I'm a people person, people like that get me out of my comfort zone. They almost embarrass me. I can be in earshot of a person or a group, and if they're just being outrageous, you know, out of control, it's almost embarrassing.
Sure.
I don't care if you're a guy or a girl, black or white. I want to make sure people know that Chris Brown's not in that circle.
Right. Right.
You know, I'm not in that bubble, nor do I condone that bubble at all.
Right.
I have a certain standard for myself, and it's just not where I want to be, nor I'm thankful my family's not that way either.
Sure.
So yeah, I would say that you know, people of the black community, I caught flack from them as well. Even though I had black friends, white friends, some people say, hey, you know, you talk a certain way, you don't carry yourself like we do, so, you know, and that's fine.
Right.
I didn't fit their mold and they didn't fit mine, but we tolerated each other.
Right.
But it just goes to show you that this is just another example of racism.
Sure.
And it's weird.
Well, it seems to me like I had learned much, probably in the last, since 2012 was when I became aware that there was animosity between people of lighter skin tone versus darker skin tone and all of these things. And I guess what I would say, you know, as the more conversations I've had and the more that I've learned, it seems like I kind of just go, oh my gosh, you know, white supremacy has just created such a mess.
Oh, a ripple effect,
you know,
right?
a terrible ripple effect that just creates different forms of judgment and different reasons to perhaps project insecurity and hate for different reasons, or, you know, and I've watched people, you know, the impact of white supremacy and you know, especially on Black people feeling like they have to be absolutely perfect. You have to have this perfect life or you're not going to be given a chance at this job or this thing, and which is so completely ridiculous because like you said, nobody has a perfect life. We, you know, there's divorce everywhere or just whatever going on in people's lives, and it has nothing to do with race. And but that was one of the ways that there was more marginalization, I guess, from white supremacy.
There's so many good points there. It's like I think I had this revelation back then, but I actually sort of kind of put it out there now. I tell people all the time, you cannot help where you came from, but you can help where you're going. If you can get that revelation sooner than later, if you're coming from a background that may not be that pleasant, if your social status may not be that great, if you can get that revelation that you cannot help where you're coming from, but you can help where you're going, that can set you up for great things. A lot of times people get locked into what I call the generational curse.
Okay.
Grandpa, grandma, mom, or dad, they were on social assistance. They made it work. So can I. Okay. That doesn't work.
Right.
And that's a whole other story. But you can you need to always want to better yourself, and you hope every generation always does better. That's why my wife and I, we set our kids up to start off better than what we did, and that's where it's at. A lot of people, and I saw a lot of people growing up, Black and white, that had so much potential that never were able to break that generational curse. I don't know if they thought they couldn't do better or they just didn't want to do better.
Right.
And they wasted a life.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Some of them didn't make it out of high school. Some of them did. Mm-hmm. And they just have spent the majority of the time behind bars.
Right.
It's such a waste.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. But yeah, so I say that you need to sometimes, try to make your future as bright as you can. And if you have something that's in your circle that's not positive, not really going anywhere, you have to first of all have the courage and strength to break away from it.
It takes a lot of confidence, and that's what I keep hearing, that you've had a lot of confidence, it seems, throughout your life, and you've had people around you that had a lot of confidence.
Right.
And not everybody does have that, it absolutely makes a difference. And, I heard somebody else say at one point too, people that are more confident are not going to be inclined to be judgmental or put hateful attitudes out toward anyone.
Yeah, that's right.
They're going to be more compassionate, more understanding, more merciful, and see people for who they are and see their potential. And I love how you were sharing earlier too, just that you know who you are, you know the spirit of who you are, and whether you call it the law of attraction or energy, or just you were drawn to people that fit that, and that you could,
like-minded, right?
Yeah. And that you could easily relate to, and you didn't want to be stretched out of your comfort zone as far as that goes, and to have that be accepted rather than judged.
Right. I learned that we don't judge, right? And sometimes people mistake confidence as a form of arrogance. I hope I'm never perceived that way, because I would do anything for anybody that's trying to better themselves. Because I know at the end of the day, everything you have, you're just borrowing. You don't own anything. Mm-hmm. I always tell people, I've never seen a U-Haul truck follow a hearse.
Okay.
Once you come in naked, you're going to go out naked, and that's the way it's going to roll.
Right.
And everything you've acquired over life, it's going to go to somebody else, and you are just borrowing those material things. They're not yours.
So with that, what is important to you?
Family.
Yeah.
Yeah. God and family.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they both mean a lot. Yeah, definitely. And setting your kids up in your family to, like, say, do good things and be good people. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's to me, that's what it's all about.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have any particular encouragement that you would want to give to our listeners, or any focused educational points, just as far as making this world, doing your part in making this world a better place and being inside of awareness. You've shared a lot of very personal things, and part of that is to help people to understand that the things that we're talking about in 2021 now, where we're talking about diversity, equity, inclusivity, where we're addressing racial issues, you have some people that want to say, oh, that was so far in the past, or we need to just get over it and move forward. We need to stop talking about it.
Right.
All these things. But
right.
So there's a reason that you felt it was important to get this personal and share. So what is it that you would hope that people would take from this conversation?
People need to evolve. So I think that, you need to understand where you came from to understand where you are, where you need to go. But people need to evolve. I think that obviously history is important, but don't get stuck in what your forefathers fought for. Don't stay here or wherever and be stuck in your environment. If you are stuck somewhere, feel like you're stuck, press on, keep on moving, do something positive. And just because you may not think you're moving fast enough, as long as you're making forward progress, it's all that matters.
Right.
Just never stop.
Yes.
Never stop being a person. Never stop being a human. Always help your brother and sister. Just never stop.
Right.
Just always be positive.
Yes.
There's so much negative things around it. And you almost have to build a shield around yourself. Don't let the negative vibes in. Just remain positive.
Yes.
And like I said, talking about some of these past episodes, it unlocks a lot of different things that happen. But I think that they probably made me who I am, and because of who I'm to the core and what I focus on, I didn't let that define me.
How did you not let that define you? Some people, again, they don't have as much confidence. Maybe they don't have the support system. And I think that's part of what was really important, is you did have a support system.
Yeah.
You had people that brought a lot of positive into your life. But do you have any thoughts as far as how to... you're not angry, you're not bitter, but you're also holding boundaries. You're not being naive either.
Oh yeah. You have to keep your eyes open. But I have to say, I don't know. I just wasn't brought up the way to see race or color. I saw people what they were, and I always try to look for the better in someone. I try to say that. Even someone that's, a negative Nancy, there's got to be something good inside. And sometimes you have to, look around all that barbed wire and all and say, okay, something to the core is good. We just got to find and capitalize on it, right?
Right.
So, I try to find the good in people, but when I've exhausted that, I have to move on.
Yes.
But I like I say, I know that we're all God's children, and if someone's in a challenge, you try to help them out. You never think you're better than anybody else, because you really aren't. We're all people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just I'm thankful.
Yes.
I'm humble and I'm thankful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I would really like to thank you.
Oh, thank you
for everything that you have shared with our listeners today.
Oh yeah. I appreciate the time.
Absolutely. And Chris, you've always, from the time that I've met you, you've always been that very positive light.
Right.
You do encourage. You're an encourager, and it is beautiful to be able to be around people such as yourself,
I appreciate that.
who exudes opportunity and hope and encouragement and love and kindness, but at the same time you don't have your head in the sand.
Nope.
You know, and
Always
you
gotta be
are
aware.
yeah, you have the boundaries, and so you're not in denial, you're not hiding, you're
Right.
not pretending things aren't happening, but
Yeah.
you are conducting yourself in a way that you feel good about.
Right. You have to be mindful and,
Yeah.
like I say, just you can have situational awareness always, right?
Yes.
Always. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
But I've had fun.
right. Well, thank you, Chris.
Thank you. I appreciate it.